Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Monday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. This is going to be a very busy show. We got CFL to react to from the weekend. We have baseball trades to react to from the weekend. We have a UFC card to react to from the weekend. Plus, we got boxing to get ready for this weekend and WWE Summerslam. So it is going to be a very busy show. I have already preambled too much. Let's get into it. Talk some football. All right, Friday was all about looking at the Ultimate Fighting Championship, so we didn't get into a lot from the Canadian Football League. So let's get into it here as we start things off with the Montreal Alouettes beating the Saskatchewan Roughriders in what was a really, really disappointing game for the green and white. And I'll get into that a little bit more on the Rider Happy Hour in the next couple of days. But this was a really, really frustrating night for the Saskatchewan Roughriders to give up what felt like a very convincing lead when backup quarterback comes in is really tough. And now credit Davis Alexander, who came in and lit the world on fire against a Riders defense that has not been easy to do that against. So credit him for what he was able to accomplish there. But this was a difficult game for Saskatchewan. It just felt like they couldn't stop any of the Montreal momentum. It was kind of like, to use the UFC example that we're going to use later, it was kind of like Leon Edwards not being able to get Bilal Muhammad off of him and have that be a real challenge. It just, as soon as that ball got moving, Saskatchewan just couldn't stop them defensively. And this is something that's come up for Saskatchewan a couple of times, whether it was against McInnes and Vernon Adams, and now in this game here, where there's an obvious trend that is building, and Saskatchewan hasn't been able to really adjust to that necessarily. So that has been really frustrating for Saskatchewan. On the Montreal side, this is a sneaky big win. Ottawa is charging hard, and to be able to pick up a victory with Cody Fajardo out of the lineup is really impactful. And this kind of goes to show what I've been talking about with Montreal for a little bit. This is a beautifully built roster. They made some moves at the deadline last year to go out and acquire Sankey and really really solidify this defense. And with the weapons that have stepped up in Julian Grant and in Phil Pott and Speaker to a lesser extent, but Fletcher as well, you don't need to come in and be Nathan Rourke to just light the world on fire with this team. There are weapons that you can absolutely go to. And so that really did show it there. And it was a tough one for Caleb Evans because he looked bad and he was, I think, actively hurting this team. And Davis Alexander came in and just made the smart passes at the smart times, and that allowed them to really get going and really get the ball moving. But with Ottawa charging hard to be able to get that win, hold on to top spot in the East Division, and keep that first round bye locked in as we creep towards Labor Day is really, really important for Montreal. So a big win for them on the weekend. The other one I want to talk about, the Calgary Stampeders. I'm based in Calgary, so this is a team that I pay attention to quite a bit. That was pretty dreadful from a Calgary standpoint. And I think the big thing is, like, you can kind of just chalk it up to a bad game, but this defense that was supposed to be the strength of this Calgary team all season long has not been there for this group. And that has been really, really disappointing, that the defense that was supposed to be the strength has ended up being the weakness. And now this one, it like everything just snowballed on this team. But Ottawa's defense is not one that you should only be giving up 6 points to. This should have been kind of like that shootout that Calgary and Ottawa had a season ago, where it was just like the ball was flying all over the place. And the ball was just kind of flying all over the place, and that became a real shootout and kind of the solidifying, okay, Ottawa's defense just gives this up to everybody, don't they? And so I have real concerns now on the Calgary side of things, on both sides of the football. For Ottawa, Drew Brown continuing to get better and spreading the ball around, and his weapons starting to really develop here has been really important. And it's something that we talked about all offseason, that this was, maybe they weren't the biggest winners of the offseason, but they certainly set themselves up for the future by going out and getting a Drew Brown. That was really big for them. And so this is, like, I don't know how for real Ottawa is, but they're at least a little bit for real in an East that has a lot of not for real right now. So no, not overly lengthy, but that is just a quick recap from what I saw from the CFL. We'll get more in depth on the Canadian Football League coming up on Wednesday when we do power rankings. We are hours away from baseball's trade deadline, and quite a few moves have been made. I am recording this at 12:26 on Monday. There is a 3-team trade that is on the go right now. We're not going to talk about that because there's still a lot of moving pieces, but let's talk about some of the other trades that have happened leading up to this deadline period. Baseball's trade deadline period is going off. As I'm recording this, there's a 3-team trade going on that is sending Michael Kopech to the Dodgers, a bunch of other pieces going a bunch of other places. It's still getting worked out as I'm recording this, so no reaction to that one. But a couple of the bigger trades that have happened over the last few days, and the big one involves the biggest team in the sport, and that is Jazz Chisholm going to the New York Yankees. And just initial reaction is this is the type of player that the Yankees need. An athletic player who's going to cause some trouble on the bases, someone who is just another live bat in a lineup that has all of a sudden lost all of them. And so I think that he is a really interesting piece for this Yankee team and can be a real, whether he is a table setter for Soto and Judge, whether he follows Judge and sets the table for the rest of the lineup and just kind of keeps the line moving a little bit. This is a type of a bat that this team needed. The issue, there isn't really an obvious fit for him positionally right now. They're not going to put him in left with Verdugo being kind of the defensive specialist guy. You're not going to put him at second with Gleyber Torres being there right now. And so you're kind of left shoulder shrug emoji. The talk is right now that he'll play some third base. He's never done that at the big league level. And so I don't doubt that he is a talented enough human that he would be able to make that work. But it is just a little bit, with everything, with everything that this team has, where the obvious fit is. The obvious answer is there's another trade coming, and Gleyber is the one moving out, or Verdugo is, with Jason Dominguez kind of on track to be coming back soon. So there is, I think, this is the first in, I think, a line of moves for the Yankees. I'll be interested to see where he fits in positionally and how the other things move out, because they do need probably at least one or maybe two more bats, because it has really dried up outside of Soto and Judge. They probably need something else in the bullpen. That bullpen has just been kind of okay all season long. Funny enough, the starting rotation, which was the area of this team that I had the biggest concern of going into the season, has been fine and has been keeping them as above water as they've been able to stay in what has been a really dreadful month and a half now for this ball club. So they'll probably try to add one more starter, but this is a good start, but it should only just be the start for the New York Yankees. Also, I believe this one came in a little bit ago, but Randy Arozarena going to the Mariners. This adds offensive punch to a team that desperately needs it. This was one of the best pitching staffs in baseball a year ago, and unlike the one out here in Toronto, they have stayed one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. And now Arozarena brings a proven playoff bat to a team that desperately needs that, losing Teoscar Hernandez in the offseason and really not replacing him with anybody from an offense that was already not great. This is the exact type of a bat that this team has been looking for. And I'm not saying okay, well, Mariners championship contender now, but this, I don't know if this got enough play for how dangerous this can make the Mariners now in that battle for top spot in the West with Houston and just in the American League in general. There's a lot of talk about the big teams in the East and Houston, but the Seattle Mariners, if they can get another bat like that, then all of a sudden, this is a team that can be really, really dangerous in the American League. Sticking in the American League and going back out east, it is Zach Eflin going to the Baltimore Orioles. This is a good addition. He's going to pitch in about half an hour from when I'm recording this against the Toronto Blue Jays in Game 1 of their doubleheader. And it is, I think it's a smart move. His numbers are pretty pedestrian this year, but he is easily one of their top 5 pitchers and probably one of their top 3 pitchers. Might you make a case top 2? when he is on. And he hasn't been fully on this year. And trading 4 pitchers from the Rays has always been a fool's errand. But this does feel like a really smart move for the Baltimore Orioles. I would like to see them make one more big splash when it comes to this particular trade market. But to go into the postseason with Eflin as a 3 or a 4, a 2 or a 3, you feel all right about. But the 3 or 4, you would feel significantly better about. And then lastly, I'm going to go more into the Blue Jays moves probably once the deadline is done. This week is kind of all over the place for me. But the big one so far is Danny Jansen on his way to the Boston Red Sox. Jansen, I thought, did an amazing job with the pitching staff for the Blue Jays. I thought he and Pete Walker were a really big part of why Toronto had the success they did in developing pitchers like a Robbie Ray, like a Steven Matz, and so on. And now with a Kikuchi, getting the most out of Chris Bassett over the last couple of seasons. I think Danny Jansen has been a really big part of that. And so I think this is a really, really valuable ad for the Boston Red Sox. Jansen is familiar with the American League East and what it takes to win in this division. And I think he has a really underrated bat with had it with the Blue Jays because there were bigger names like Vladdy and with Bo. I think this is going to be a really sneaky good ad for the Boston Red Sox as they push toward a wild card spot in the American League. So we'll see what else happens in baseball's trade deadline, but I think we're in for a really fun finish to the season in Major League Baseball. Okay, let's continue on now by going into the fight game, as it is, it was, a very big weekend in the world of combat sports with UFC 304. Let's break it all down. UFC 304 going down from London, England. In the main event, it was Belal Muhammad. Remember the name, with a performance you will never forget. A dominant victory over Leon Edwards. So let's get into that. I thought Muhammad fought the perfect fight on Saturday night, or early Sunday morning, and we'll get into that in a second. I thought he fought the perfect fight to win that championship. His hands were quick, they were improved, and that's part of a bigger story with Belal we'll get to in a second, but I think that really threw off Leon Edwards, the speed that his strikes were able to come with, and the precision that they had, and some of the power that they had behind him, and that set everything up. He strung together all of the elements of mixed martial arts so impressively, where he was able to get pressure off of his striking, relentless pressure that would back Edwards up into the fence. He gets the takedown, and he gets his control from there. He set up the takedowns beautifully. He strung everything together with his hands that set up the ground game, that set up him winning a championship. His control on the ground then was fantastic. I would have liked to have seen a few more threats, just personally, whether it was submission threats or a little bit more impactful ground and pound. But one thing that I think is lost on people when we talk about these, and it starts from the top with Dana White, to be able to hold down a championship level human for essentially 25 minutes, when they don't want to be held there, is really difficult to do and really impressive. And so for Belal Muhammad to just control this fight the way that he did was high level stuff and deserving of being the welterweight champion. The fact that he keeps improving is insane. He's 36 years old and he's getting better and better with each fight. And all of this, the long road that he has taken, I think has developed him into a really well-rounded mixed martial artist. There were times where he was probably deserving of this opportunity. I don't know if he has been as ready for this opportunity as he was Sunday morning in England at 5:30 a.m. I think that he should have been further in the line a number of different times, but I think that he really rounded out his game in this longer journey that got him to be a complete martial artist and now has led him to be a champion. On the other side, tough night for Leon Edwards. So much pressure on him going into your hometown as the champion with everything else that is going on. And I don't want to take anything away from Belal because it was a brilliant performance. I felt like Leon Edwards underestimated Belal Muhammad in this one. I think you could see when he got punched a couple times, it was like, does not compute. I wasn't ready for this one. Why is that punching me? That wasn't supposed to be punching me. That was supposed to be trying to take me down. And so that I think kind of flustered Leon Edwards a little bit, and it also, I think, then led to a lot of his demise because he's not circling the way you would from a regular striking threat. He's just backing into the fence and being taken down. And then when he is on the ground, he's not doing enough to disengage and get back to the area where he should have the greater approach. On the feet, where, like I just said, he was getting tagged, and so maybe that just threw everything off, and he's like, well, I'm getting shit pumped here on the feet. That was supposed to be my area, so maybe I'll try to win it in his area here down on the ground. Like, maybe it just really flustered things with him for this particular fight. But he would get out from underneath Bilal, and it's like, okay, well, here we go. And then he would stay engaged in the clinch, and he's not hand fighting, and he's not doing any of the things that you need to do to get out of that situation into a spot that you would feel would be more advantageous for him. So I thought he fought a really poor fight, and I felt like he was maybe a little bit flustered in there with everything else that was going on around him. But the thing that I thought was really concerning, he didn't handle Bilal's forward pressure at all, and it was something that people are calling for Colby Covington to do in their fight a few months ago, and Colby didn't use his traditional forward pressure, and now you're wondering, like, if he did, would he have been champion? Now, part of that Leon Edwards striking kept Colby at a bit of a distance, and Bilal was like, fuck it, man, this is my only chance to win the welterweight championship. At 36 years old, with the route they made me take to get here anyway, I am not John Finching myself. So if I gotta eat a couple punches to the face, my guy, I am eating a couple punches to the face, and I am walking through that. And so I thought the level of urgency and desperation was more so on the side of the challenger than it was on the champion, and I think that, again, threw Leon Edwards off a little bit, and just had him fighting a real ineffective fight. And I understand we all romanticize John Jones, where, oh my God, he went out there and he struck with the striker, and he went out there and grappled with the grappler, and he beat all these guys at their best game. And yes, that is some high level shit. And I feel like Leon Edwards tried to do that a couple of times. In the Colby fight, he tried to do some wrestling, and in the Bilal Muhammad fight here, he tried to do some wrestling. And I think that kind of overtook the better judgment of him just having the advantage on the feet and really trying to solidify that advantage. And it just didn't really work for him on this night. I still think Leon Edwards is a very good fighter and a championship level fighter. I just think this was a bad night for him and a great night for Bilal Muhammad, who again, 100% deserves all the flowers that he is getting. In the co-main event, Tom Aspinall continues to get the job done with his fight-altering power, knocking out Curtis Blaydes, technically, in exactly 1 minute's time. That power is otherworldly, man. Like, this is the second time where it looks like it is a glancing blow, and it either... Like, for Pavlovich, it put him on roller skates, and for Blaydes, it just sent him tumbling, and that was that. And because Aspinall is such a great athlete for a heavyweight, he is so quick to pounce, and then just unloads the chamber, ground and pound. And who knows if this would have ended up being Shane Carwin versus Brock Lesnar, where he just punches his arms out, and then rounds 2 through 5, he's getting just ragdolled around there. We'll never know because the referee stepped in maybe a touch early on the stoppage, but it didn't look like anything was happening on Blaydes' end to alter how things were going to go. So I thought this was a much better way of handling things than just letting him take a little bit more punishment. But for Tom Aspinall, he is the best heavyweight in the sport. And I said in the previews and all throughout the week, I just want this John Jones stuff with Stipe Miocic finished so that we can get to, like, the actual fun stuff in the heavyweight division and give Tom Aspinall the platform that he deserves. That's what I want from all of this. Third from the top, it was Paddy Pimblett with an impressive win over Bobby Green. I said in the preview, this was Paddy Pimblett's biggest fight, and he put on his best performance. This was an unbelievable showing for Paddy Pimblett. He used his size advantage perfectly. They got in there, it's like, oh, Well, one of them is bigger than the other. And he used that reach to his advantage. He was using the kicks to keep Bobby Green at distance and still using his hands when Green would come close so that he never really let Bobby Green establish that range. And then for him to get to the point where Green is shooting for a takedown on him, that really showed to me the advances in the stand-up and the edge in the stand-up that Paddy Pimblett had in this particular fight. And that led it to the ground, and that led it to the show being closed. This is the Paddy Pimblett we have all wanted to see. For the last couple of fights, it hasn't necessarily been there. This was the guy that we wanted Paddy Pimblett to be, and he showed up in a big-time way. Like I said, this was the best performance of his career. He keeps fighting like that, he's going to have a number beside his name for a long time. And performances like that, he might get a title opportunity probably first quarter 2025. He probably gets one more fight in here. That is, so maybe second quarter 2025. Gets one more fight here as his first top 15, then maybe work into a title eliminator, and then boom. Because I do think there is going to be a bit of a rocket attached to him. He's not going to have to take the Bilal Muhammad route to get to this point. And for Bobby Green, he still is a competitive mixed martial artist. He just isn't on this guy's level. And that's what it is. The other ones that were on this card, Gregory Rodriguez absolutely dominates Christian Leroy Duncan in a really controlling fashion. I had said coming in that I thought this would be like a real exciting throwdown, and it just wasn't. It could have been, but Rodriguez was like, yeah, you know what? I feel like just controlling this entire fight. He dictated where this fight took place, and he dictated the pace that it took place at. He was in complete control of this entire fight, and he is showing to be a really well-rounded fighter. We knew coming in, like, obviously, he is a billion-time wrestling and jiu-jitsu champion, but he also has the power that he showed in his last fight to knock guys out legitimately. And so all of it is coming together in this really well-rounded form that makes this guy really, really scary to face at 185 pounds. For Leroy Duncan, it derails the hype train a little bit. Excuse me. I think it's just him kind of going back to the drawing board a little bit, because this was a complete domination of him, and I did not expect that. So there needs to be, I think, a little bit more done in his camp to get him back to this level now. And in the pay-per-view opener, it was Arnold Allen against Giga Chikadze. This was just a high-level mixed martial arts fight. Both fighters come out of this with a higher stock than when they went in. And I think it was really impressive. Admittedly, I thought Chikadze still did enough, in the second round, landing more impactful punches. So I actually had him winning this fight. But it seemed like most people disagreed, so I'm willing to admit that I'm just maybe off on this one. But for Arnold Allen to be able to figure out that chess match again, and like things are going against him for the third fight in a row, and to be able to stop it from circling the drain and come away with a big victory is some really high level stuff, and kind of gets him back on that trajectory toward a potential title challenge again, probably sometime in 2025. And for Chikadze, he just needs to fight more, man. Like he only fought once each of the last 2 years. This is his first fight since August of 2023. He needs to get another fight in, and another fight in, and another fight in. Like, just keep that ring time going, because this is a very talented fighter in there. A couple other news and notes things from this. I think Michael Bisping is a really high level commentator, but it was getting tough to listen to whenever a UK fighter was in there, because he couldn't say more than one critical thing about a UK fighter at a time without then having to put that fighter over. And it was getting to the point where it was obvious. Like, if I'm noticing it, it's obvious. And it was like, well, Leon landed 2 good elbows here in the 5th round. Maybe he won this fight. And that just simply wasn't the case. And the Leroy Duncan one, where he has a very clear way of winning, and that is fighting at a distance and having it be a pretty striking contest. And he's grappling with him. And Bisping saying, well, I mean, what do you expect? Like, he's fighting for survival. It's like, well, I expect him to fight the way that is advantageous to him. It felt like there was a lot of excuse making for UK fighters, and there was a lot of just, it became very obvious, and it sounded like, and look, like I've been there. Not at that high of a level, certainly, but talking on the rights holder for the Calgary Flames, and you know that certain people are listening. There are times where you're not going to go as all in on them as maybe you would on a podcast or an internet platform or something along those lines. And so when you have a relationship with these people, it becomes difficult to do that. And it felt like in his head, he was thinking about the conversations he would have to have with these fighters after. And so that led to some of the commentary being a little bit not as critical of those fighters as maybe the moment deserved. And I'm not saying like go out there and be like, oh yeah, actually Leon Edwards is dog shit and probably doesn't even deserve to be in the PFL. I'm not saying that, but just be realistic of the situation and not be looking for different ways to credit your guy. And when a UK fighter eats 3 bombs in a row and sends him back a little bit, don't be like, yeah, but that counter left got through. It was really, really frustrating. And the other frustrating part of it is that I think Bisping is a really, really good commentator. And there were some times where he would pick up on things a round or two sooner than commentary normally does. Like, I think he has a real mind for this. And obviously he has an amazing personality and he's so much fun. And I've been able to at least be in the same room once when the UFC came here and all the media was around, and he's one of those guys where all of a sudden everything just attracts to him and he is all of a sudden the center of attention because he's so entertaining, he's so engaging, and it seems like a genuinely nice guy. But it became really obvious on this night, and it was a little frustrating. And then on the officiating, that was just horrendous. We need to stop with warnings in the cage. Like, maybe this is an overreaction, but I would rather overreact this way than Leon Edwards getting away with cage grabs in the 5th round, a crucial round of a championship fight. Like, we saw cage grab, warning. Eye pokes, warning. Dude was getting his trunks pulled off. Warning. That can't keep happening. To me, I don't care, like incidental, whatever. You got limbs flying over the place, fine. Call it like high sticking in hockey, where you are supposed to be in control of your weapons at all times. And so incidental, don't give a shit. The one I can is headbutts, because like different stanced fighters, that's just that is an occupational hazard and it sucks. So the headbutts I will grant you. But eye pokes, it's 2024, man. We know. Like, you're not supposed to lead like this with your hands pointed straight out, guys, right? That's you're not supposed to be a thing. When you're doing a leg kick, don't hit them in the balls. When you're getting taken down, don't grab the fence. We've known this for forever. These aren't new rules that you are implementing. These have been for forever. And so to me, your last warning is the one you get in the back, or if you're doing the main event with Bruce Buffer's mic in the face of the official. That's the last warning you get. Anything else, a foul is a foul, and you take full responsibility for those. I am done with fighters getting advantages off of a number of different things, and oh, well, it was probably incidental. Like, okay, fine, still a foul. You are the best athletes in the world. Figure it out. And lastly, the timing of this. Dana White complaining about fighters not really getting after it. A, I thought this was an entertaining fight card. I really enjoyed this show. B, it's 5:30 in the morning there. And I understand, like, there are ways to go about it where you don't change your body clock. But when you are asking these guys to be doing media out there, and also, like, just how your body works with how the sun works and all of that, it's asinine and just kind of an asshole move to criticize how these fighters are fighting when you're making them fight at 3:30 in the goddamn morning. And so it's another example of Dana White being completely tone deaf and really frustrating. So that was just last thing I wanted to say about that. So that's what happened last weekend. What's coming up this weekend is huge. Mega boxing card coming up with one of the best fighters in the sport getting after it. Let's talk about it as we break down the early storylines for Terrance Crawford. One of boxing's best is back in the ring this weekend as Terrance Crawford makes his return to boxing with a lot of interesting implications around it. Let's talk about it. The biggest story here is Terrance Crawford is back off of one of the best performances a boxer has had in a really long time. 2 pound for pound, top at minimum 10, definitely 7, probably 5 fighters facing each other, and he whooped Errol Spence's ass. Just complete domination of one of the best fighters in the sport and one of the best fighters at the weight that he is going to be fighting at. When you have all of that going on, it might be pretty easy to then go, yeah, I got this for this next fight here against Madrimov. He cannot do that. Now, he's good enough that he can do it a little bit, but I don't think he can take his foot off the gas. Now, I don't think he will either. I do think that given the relative inactivity that he had at times and a bit of rankings disrespect at times, I think that he is going to look to make a statement here and really look to put some of that pressure on some of the other biggest fighters of the sport and really make his case, or try to make his case anyway, as the pound for pound king of the sport right now. It's interesting because I have come in here being like, oh yeah, this is the Crawford fight, and barely mentioned the opponent. And I'm still going to continue that because so much of the focus going into this fight is what is next. There was already talk of Canelo Alvarez stepping in. We're already looking at, okay, would there be another Errol Spence rematch? What do you do after this fight? A lot of people are already putting a little green dot by him on Boxing Rec and saying, all right, this is a win. What's next? Again, he can't think that way. I don't think he will, but he can't think that way. But so much of the story around this fight is about what the next chapter is and not about this chapter here. But I think the bigger picture of all of this is a fight happening in LA being put on by Saudi Arabia. And it is objectively a stacked card. One of the most stacked cards in the history of the sport. This isn't just big name at the top and then local bar fighter versus local bar fighter in the co-main event. This is not top to bottom, but as close to top to bottom as we have ever seen in the sport of boxing. And this has been a real, I think, shift in how people view Saudi influence in boxing. And I have come on here and we've talked about it with WWE and a little bit here, where it has gone from, I'm not even covering that, to, all right, it's too important to not cover, but it feels icky, to now people are like, well, with the Saudis here, maybe we get this fight, maybe we get this fight, maybe we get this fight. It has allowed boxing fans to dream of everything that is possible, but it is also everything that everyone warned us about when it came to sport washing, where all of a sudden, this is not the mean Saudi Arabia who is literally killing people for what they are saying on social media and restricting a number of human rights in their country for people who live in their country. You go visit there, you're fine. But for actual people who live in that country, it's not great if you want to say literally anything against the government that's in charge there. But now everyone's like, oh, well, no, they're Santa Claus to the boxing world. And so it has really changed a lot of people's perception of what this all means. And I think that is a really, really interesting switch, and one that these guys have been kind of looking for a long time. This is what they got. And now, but at the same time, like you're looking at, like, yeah, every fight now is possible because these guys have absolutely just exploded pardon the pun, they have just absolutely taken away any issues of promotions, of networks, of ranking, of whatever. They've just come in and be like, no, this fight's happening. Here's $2 billion. This fight's happening. Shut the fuck up. That's what they have done. So it is a new era in boxing, but it is one that I think we always have to remember the cloud that hangs over it here as we get ready for what is, again, gonna be a real fun weekend of boxing in one that, quite frankly, these guys have provided a lot of, but we can never, ever, ever forget what is hanging over it entirely. That is what's going on in the boxing side. In the world of professional wrestling, they have their biggest party of the summer, as it is SummerSlam coming up this weekend. Here are some of the early things that I'm looking for heading into that particular PLE. It is SummerSlam week as we get ready for one of the WWE's big events of the year and the first major event since WrestleMania. So where are we at? I think the WWE is building at a really good time. I think that they used the first couple of months post WrestleMania to be like, look, we know there's probably going to be a lull anyway. But B, we are going to some amazing crowds. We have a guy who is red hot as our champion. And so we can afford to maybe play around with a few things. And so they have, I think, built up Gunther tremendously. I think they have really built things up with Damian Priest. All right, that one's hasn't been perfect, but it's been fine. They have really invested in this Bloodline 2.0 with Solo Sikoa and all of that. They have used these last few months to build up, and now a lot of it is crescendoing here at SummerSlam. Priest versus Gunther, I thought they heated that one up really, really quickly. And for one that kind of felt like, well, this is like a mandatory challenge in boxing, they have built it now into a really, really compelling story. And one where I am not so sure Priest is losing here at SummerSlam. I thought Gunther, when he won King of the Ring, there is no question he wins at SummerSlam. But I do wonder if Priest gets this win, just given how, it's Booker T, Triple H, maybe not to the full extent of everything that was going on there, but with the homelessness is a choice angle that Gunther took on Raw a couple of weeks ago, that's a pretty shitty thing to have your guy say and then beat the guy after. I wonder if Priest wins here and then Gunther gets his rematch at Berlin. And they are able to get that one there, and it just feels like maybe a bit of a bigger deal and a bigger coronation for Gunther. But they have done a great job of building up some doubt in this one, and same thing goes for the Women's World Championship as well with Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. SummerSlam feels like the first big moment of this feud, not the culmination. This feels like the end of Act 1. And that makes it really exciting because I feel like there are some real legs that they have with this story. And again, that makes it really, really fun for me. When you have like a few twists and turns that are coming this weekend, I have it written down here. This is going to feel more like an Attitude Era match than it is a current one. Like, I don't think we're going to get 35 minutes bell to bell of just fast-paced action. We're going to get some, because I think these two are going to have a really good show in the ring. But I wonder, like, what's Finn's involvement in all of this? Is Dom really on Rhea Ripley's side? I think this is kind of the real big blow that kind of fractures Judgment Day up a little bit more here. And so that... I am so interested to see how this one happens. This one's probably the one that I am most intrigued to see the overall story around all of it heading into or coming out of Saturday. But it's another one where you just kind of thought, yeah, Rhea comes back, she wins the title, and she continues on her reign of dominance. I don't know. Like, Liv has found her character, and she has been exceptional at it. And I think that, like, it just, like I said, it feels like the end of Act 1. And something they can really build on into the future. And like, same with Solo and Cody. Maybe not necessarily Act 1, but this feels like it'll be a bit more Attitude Era-ish. And I do think that, like, a lot of people are anticipating Roman's coming back. I would anticipate that as well. And that kind of leads into the start of this whole big Bloodline Civil War Part 2 sort of a thing. But I think the last few weeks they've done a really good job of making the Bloodline feel unbeatable again. Like I said earlier, I would have liked to have seen more in-ring dominance, have Solo go out there and just kick the shit out of random jobber X, like just beat Baron Corbin every week. Have him go out there and do that. While also doing the table stuff at the end and all of that. But still, they've built him up. No one's believing that Solo's going to win the Undisputed Universal Champion or whatever it's called now, the WWE Championship. But I think it is setting up for a real interesting part that is next here. Other things that are going on, Punk against Drew McIntyre. It finally gets into the ring. I'm excited for this one as well. The Seth Rollins involvement intrigues me a little bit. It does feel like it is a bit of an extra piece and also a bit of a waste of Seth Rollins in this particular role. It does feel a little bit like Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus a year ago, where, like, this is a big show. One of your big stars should have a bigger role on your big show. But the main hope is just everyone stays healthy coming out of this, because these three could just do this dance basically up until the Royal Rumble. And then lastly, Braun Breaker, I think his time is now. I think, it does kind of help spin off Sammy with Jey Uso into whatever Roman Reigns thing is next. And I think that is rather helpful, actually. And I think it is now time for Braun Breaker to take that next step. We have passed this level. It is now time for him to be the ass-kicking champion, and we will see that coming up on Saturday, I do believe. All right, this was a bit of a longer one today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you are watching, make sure you subscribe and like. If you're listening, make sure you subscribe and review. If you're listening and there's only one part of this you really wanted to listen to, I break all of these segments up into their own videos up on YouTube, so that they are a bit more digestible than today's 40-minute extravaganza. So just, keep that in mind. All right, I'm on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Tomorrow, I'll be back here Wednesday with some more on the boxing, some more on the wrestling, and some more on Canadian football, and hopefully some big trades in Major League Baseball. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will talk to all of you later.